large-scale Russian attack on Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen. Overnight explosions struck Kiev and other Ukrainian cities, including Zaporizhia. What is described as a mass Russian aerial and drone attack. 3 people were killed and about 15 injured in Zaporizhia. The strike reportedly involved drones or ballistic missiles and caused residential damage, including an apartment building fire in Kiev. Fire is still visible in the daytime. And on the other side, according to the White House press briefing, there are currently no plans for a meeting between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. These are 2 dynamic shift and very diagonally opposite news coming from world news media. Sir, I want to request you to start. What are the other things, other news or other updates you want to put in today's discussion? I think today is very important.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Rashid Kanchan, and of course, good afternoon to our viewers who watch this show, and thank you all for watching this show. But let me begin today's discussion by US President Donald Trump. He is the President of the United States, and he is right now busy building a grand ballroom in the White House while ICE agents are raiding various parts of New York City, arresting street vendors in Lower Manhattan, specifically in Chinatown and Canal Street. These attacks are very unprecedented, and of course the media back in United States is reporting as this is an active ICE operation that is going on in the city. And across from that, in international news, we have the Vice President J.D. Vance visiting Israel, who is right now downplaying concerns over ceasefire. However, the Trump administration officials and others who are in this administration are privately worrying. The hostage takeover and the hostage passover situation seems to be looming at large. And of course, in other news, we have the Singapore Navy who is landing the first of 6 multi-role combat vessels, staging and acknowledging the impending threats around the Malacca Straits and into the South China Sea.
If I go to compare that time, the declaration came from White House press briefing and the attack launched by Russia, it has a significance. Just 45 minutes delayed, Russia launched this attack. Sir, I want to just know what strategic signals the United States sending to the Russia and also to the world by publicly stating no meeting is planned.
Well, even yesterday, the day before, we talked about how there was supposedly to be a meeting between the 2 leaders of Russia and United States in Budapest, if I'm not wrong. And today, the major headlines around the world include Donald Trump's administration shelving the idea of meeting Russia so soon, or the leader of Russia so soon. And we know back in August, they had a meeting which the entire world media said that it was a win for Vladimir Putin, as 2 months have gone past roughly or so, and the attack on Kyiv seems to be uncannily timed. As you were saying, just after the admission of not looking forward to this meet, the Russian army had taken an attack on Kyiv, or taken a bite at Kyiv. But if you look at how the world is going on, even yesterday I said about this matter that the United States administration remains focused on the threats and if not between the Middle Eastern region. And right now the world seems to be in a very haphazard situation. We know that Donald Trump is set to meet Asian leaders upcoming, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation that is going to be held at the end of this month, where Donald Trump is scheduled to meet and visit Japan and then of course South Korea.
Sir, I want to give you more update. This comes despite Russia-Ukraine war and other global flashpoints where US and Russia intersect. I just want to know from you, sir, how might this affect the war in Ukraine or Russia's posture elsewhere, like Middle East, like South Asia?
Well, since you mentioned South Asia, one cannot ignore the export of crude oil into India and how America had previously slammed 50% tariff amongst almost 70 other nations who have trading relationships with Russia. And the Russia economy does not seem to be broken down. Russia has support from China, from North Korea, from Iran, from Venezuela. These are countries who have direct opposition with the United States of America. Needless to say, Colombia, as I said yesterday, Colombia is now facing a crisis where US is cutting off all of its aid towards Colombia, recognizing that they are one of those other nations that would come out outright support of Venezuela. And we know the CIA is now operational in Venezuela on the orders of the POTUS, President of the United States. So this is the combination that the current administration is trying to play on.
Sir, Washington Post is writing in favor of this decision from White House Press Department. They are writing, by refusing an early meeting, the United States avoids giving diplomatic legitimacy to Russia where its war in Ukraine continues. It signals that dialogue must follow accountability, not precede it. Sir, I just want to add one more question for you. For countries, could a future meeting still be broke, perhaps via third countries like Hungary or Poland or somewhere else? And what conditions would make it possible? Because this is a hanging issue and dynamic changes are coming.
So the current war is between Ukraine and Russia. Say if it were to extend itself to Poland, if not to Hungary, if not to Finland as well, who shares a large, vast, long boundary with Russia. But Donald Trump, him trying to move away this meeting or not trying to appear here would definitely signal the tensions or the outcomes of the last meeting which happened in Anchorage in Joint Air Force Base in Alaska. And what I was speaking out on one of the bilateral cooperation between America and Russia. They are trying to build a bridge between the two continents. So whether or not the US support or where and which direction the US support is going to go to is the question here. But Europe in general is very alarmed at this attack on their corridor. The NATO expansionism is what's going to be affected the most. And this is why the Russian war machine had to become operational. And not only so, right now there has been numerous deaths that has happened on both of the sides, Ukraine and Russia. But still too early, in my opinion, it would be still too early for anything, for a meeting to happen between the two leaders, in my opinion.
Sir, New York Times welcomes this decision by the White House. Very openly, they has written, this stance reassures NATO and European allies that the US won't compromise collective positions or appear soft on Moscow's actions, strengthening Western unity. New York Times also strategically says this is a patience as leverage. Holding back talks allows Washington to maintain pressure on Moscow through sanctions, military aid to Ukraine, and diplomatic isolation, preserving leverage for future negotiations. This is a new kind of war strategy. So, I just want to know, sir, from you, that is, in terms of global power dynamics, does this mark a deepening of the Cold War style rivalry, or it is a tactical posture?
Posturing is definitely one of these elements that are happening between the varied countries here. Let me add on to what you were saying. The Polish authorities said 55 people have been detained in recent months on suspicion of activities undertaken for the Russian intelligence, up from an earlier count of 8. So, of course, military intelligence, as far as it is concerned, they are actively working in such territories in Europe. This time it was in Poland. The security of so many countries are at risk because of the failures of politicians trying to understand what is their intention, or the lack of dialogue between the two individual parties or multiple parties is what is at stake here. We know it hasn't been that long before the European nations had met Donald Trump in the White House to discuss how far and what's going on regarding the Ukraine and Russia confrontation. And to some extent, the European Union countries, Italy, Spain, as well as Finland, Poland, Hungary, all of these nations, including the UK, United Kingdom, who have sat down with Donald Trump, because even they understand that the US support cannot be faltering in any or so circumstances. And this is why it is so important to understand the US position on this matter.
Sir, China Delhi has said this action by the White House limits on strategic problem solving. China Delhi says key international issues, cyber security, arms control, space policy, energy require US-Russia engagement. The absence of talks could slow solutions to shared global threats. On the other part of the world, Russia today itself says global instability and uncertainty. Without a US-Russia diplomatic channel, conflicts such as in Ukraine, the Middle East and even nuclear arms control remain unresolved, depending global security. Sir, do you think Donald Trump is making everything complex because he want to hang this Russia-Ukraine war for his intention to expand American business in Europe?
Well, the American business in Europe that you were saying, I think to some angle, war profiteering is something that United States seem to be very cautious of. First of all, the United States defense budget is $1 trillion. There are, I have said this on various shows as well, and I'll say it again today. There are military industrial complex companies who see to various war fronts. These war fronts we discuss upon, we look at the humanistic losses of life, and we try to understand what is the outcome of going to war. But recently we see that the US administration had failed to try to get Russia off of Ukraine's corridor. In the eastern flank, almost 35% of the Ukrainian territory is taken in by force, by the act of war upon the Ukrainian people, and what Ukraine wants is their land to be coming back. So these are the two narratives that they want to play out. But there are some instances where citizens of Ukraine who live by the border of these surrounding regions, who are trying to defect themselves into the Russian community, or trying to think of a change of citizenship, whether or not they will be allowed into Russia. So these are quite the important news that people should look upon. But Donald Trump goes on to his Truth Social handle while the Diwali celebration, and he says that the two countries are killing each other. Two countries are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. This, of course, sets a different precedent for now, and of course the loss of life is intense. We know that it's not just Russians who are taking part in their aggression towards Ukraine. Various other immigrant population have been seen fighting here. We see the North Korean army personnel are guiding and tagging along with the Russian army. So it's not just Russia's aggression on Ukraine, it's also Russia and its own allies who are trying to understand whether or not this will bring any kind of fruitful benefits.
Right, sir. I have got some information from different medias in United States of America, which medias does not support, Republicans does not support and does not appreciate Donald Trump's action. They says Donald Trump has changed his strategy because he wants Putin engaged in one war like Ukraine. Against will be NATO and European countries, because Putin has a plan and dream to go for Greenland and few parts of the Canada. This is another dimension and totally paradigm shift of his policy. I just want to know, sir, the last question, what would be the reactions of NATO partners or European allies or the country like Turkey, who was so hopeful to stop this war between Russia and Ukraine?
The position of Turkey remains in a place where they try to actively promote peace between any kind of region, whether that be Middle East, if not in Europe. But one of the things that I understand is, especially when you mention NATO, one of the things that came out earlier this year was all NATO members to lift their defense spending budget from the remaining, I think, 2.5 up until 5%, because that was the rule that had come out of various NATO meetings held earlier this year. But one of those countries that did not see eye to eye on this regard was Spain. Spain called out that it had no reason for its defense spending to go up, as it remains neutral to almost every nation on earth. So the neutrality factor and keeping oneself out of war is quite as important as Spain sees fit. But once again, I would like to mention the coalition of the willing, led by Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of UK. Their entire goal, including the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, who is planning on to rebuild Ukraine after this war had ended. But right now, the conquered lands on the eastern flank of Ukraine are not demilitarized zones. So these are active war zones. Anything can go wrong, anything can happen before the end of this year, which we cannot expect.
Sir, there are paradigm shifts also in Europe's move to end Russian gas imports. Europe, mostly EU countries, have agreed to terminate all fossil gas imports from Russia via pipeline and LNG starting January 1, 2026 for new contracts. So this marks a major energy geopolitics shift, Europe reducing reliance on Russia's gas supplies. Don't you consider it as an alternative of sanctions, economic sanctions on Russia?
Well, if the past was in a method where the European nations used to bring in or import in fossil fuels or gas from Russia, right now, if you go contradictory to this method, it is one of those mechanisms that will slow down Russia's export infrastructure. But considering the fact that it's not just Russia is not looking at one end of its country, it can also try to look at the eastern side. We have China, we have Mongolia, we have North Korea. These are people, or these are countries who represented by people who are of the support of Vladimir Putin and his the Kremlin in other terms. But of course, international community remains silent regarding the fact that this is also another example of warmongering towards a different population. Whether or not it is ethnic cleansing is a matter of question, but if you compare it to what has happened in the Middle East for the last 3 years, it is nowhere near by the loss of lives that have been claimed.
So there are some problems, especially the morning said strengthening Europe's energy independence, ending reliance on Russian gas, reduces Europe's strategic vulnerability to Moscow's political and economic pressure, especially after the Ukraine war. It enhances long-term energy security and sovereignty. But as far geography is concerned, there are many landlocked countries in Europe who has only built pipeline with the Russia. What they gonna do in this short term 3 months period if they cancels the buying power or energy or fuel from Russia, because they don't have seaports?
Yes, Russia is one of those countries that are very landlocked, if I would say it, and one of those places that they try to use is through the channels in Crimea around so. But this is a business. To my understanding, there is trade and there is economics involved, which are quite so important for any thriving economy. But it is now a war economy that Russia is going through. Loss of life is occurring, loss of ammunition is occurring. The minute you try to understand whether it is needed or not. One of the things that Benjamin Netanyahu also was stuck on was what is the clear decisive outcome of your war on Gaza. Similarly, what is the decisive outcome from Russia trying to invade a territory that had sought independence way back so many years ago?
Sir, last queries regarding this. Gas exports are a major source of revenue for the Kremlin, I mean Vladimir Putin and his war financing. Cutting them off limits Russia's financial capacity to fund its war in Ukraine and other military operations. I just want to know one thing, and I am very curious. Do you think China will take disadvantage in favor of Russia's financing for war?
It wouldn't be a direct financing between the two nations, but it would be economic re-enhancement between the two nations. Of course, China does actively try not to involve itself in matters where it can be seen as accomplice or aiding someone who is going into a war. Whether that war is justified or not, these are the questions that the foreign ministry inside China must ask itself. But as far as business and economics is concerned, we know the SCO summit had happened earlier, and Vladimir Putin, including Kim Jong-un of North Korea, had met Xi Jinping of China, who of course had a military parade marking the 80th year of the World War II secession, and that is quite important. This soft power projection which has caused Donald Trump to impose 50% tariff on India even earlier. These are all the geopolitical analysis of narratives and stories and soft posturing.
All right, sir. Time has come to go for a short break. Ladies and gentlemen, when we'll be back, we'll have a huge focus on the Middle East, especially Israel and Hamas ceasefire latest situation, because our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantha always says that this is a fragile agreement, he still believe it, and I will ask him for his latest points and arguments on this point, because it is a very serious issue. If this ceasefire go and considered fragile, another peace will be destroyed in Middle East.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900। বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন ঢাকা সহ দেশের যে কোনো 80টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে। এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস আপনার
Amazon Web Services AWS global outrage largely resolved. AWS experienced a major disruption that knocked many global websites and apps offline, including big names like Signal, Coinbase and Robinhood. The company said it largely recovered, but it is still working to restore full service and investigating the root cause. Sir, I just want to know, because you represent this generation, should world think for the alternative? Because today's world is a digital world, today's world is a web-based world, today's world is connectivity's world. So if interruption or disruption goes in this communication system, everything gonna be stopped.
Well, we understand that technology is a mean for convenience for humanistic life and of course in daily activities. But this AWS disruption, it happened on early 20th October, and it started from the US East 1 region, Northern Virginia. So this is when we understood that outage was happening, and it has of course affected applications such as Snapchat, a popular social media website, Fortnite, a popular gaming platform, Duolingo, a popular translation application, Canva, a popular video editing tool, and of course Signal, a popular communications tool. These are platforms that people use on a daily basis, whether to communicate, whether to conduct business. And of course one comes without mentioning that on various previous shows on international affairs, we've had Norman Floyd Barnes, who used to join through us through Zoom. He has not been being able to do so for the last 2 days, and I believe that this disruption is a matter that has caused this matter. But according to various news agencies, that the post-mortem from AWS, they will be giving a published detailed report reviewing the technical details on why this had happened. And of course we must look at regulation. To some extent people are more dependent on technology more than ever before, and the rise of AI is one of those aspects. Just to add on to the fact that even when you scroll Facebook on these modern times, we see content that is made with AI, so contents which is fake or contents that has not happened in reality. So once again we must understand what realm technology belongs to, and whether or not it is allowing us to achieve a higher convenience and efficiency than before.
Sir, as you raised regarding the AI, recently so many very significant AI videos came from different personality like Chuck Schumer, his audio has been copied, then an AI video has come to the internet, and it became a huge subject to discuss within the American people, because the shutdown is going on, and today is a 22nd day of shutdown. Federal workers are going to be fired. And yesterday, one AI video has been posted by Donald Trump himself from his X handle. He is with a crown and he is telling that this is the King Donald Trump. This is confusing. So, do you think AI will help us in our work, in our progress, in our development, or AI will mislead the generations, the people, and giving the misleading message to the people of the world?
This is to some extent political stuntmanship. Earlier on, it was not just Donald Trump wearing a crown claiming that he's king. When the shutdown happened in initial days, I was in America and I was following what was going on. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries were made goons. Hakeem Jeffries was seen wearing a sombrero playing music on a video that was made by AI from Donald Trump's Truth Social account, which was posted. So this is the maturity of politicians there, how they see an opposition, how they see the Democrats today. And it has got into its third week. People are slowly starting to feel the burden of living and going to work without the security of payment. We know that the food stamps program in America, they might run out, the provisions for elderly may run out, the public funding of various parks, various public places may be hampered. These are all the things that are affecting America on a daily basis. And if you want to look away from those who are working in the public sector in America or the governmental jobs, today there was a news where we know how much of tit for tat kind of comments have been made by Zoran Mamdani versus Donald Trump. And recent times Zoran says that he is ready to handle or tackle Donald Trump head to head. This comes as in Eric Adams had chosen to stay out of this electoral time for this mayorship. But one of the news that has affected New York City in large, it's a breaking news in America, that ICE agents are actively taking down street vendors who are catering to the public in New York City, especially in happening places in Lower Manhattan, Chinatown and Canal Street. I've visited those places, and they're very touristy places with a vast immigrant population that offers cultures that are outside of America. So it does have some kind of cultural significance to the community there. But I don't see why there is need for ICE agent to block the streets using street blockers and create such a spectacle for the entire world to see. This comes in as the White House is busy building a ballroom, a grand ballroom inside the White House under the direction of Donald Trump. So the priorities, once again, yesterday I said to a question you asked whether or not what Donald Trump is doing, whether he is not being the people's president. And the more days that you put yourself out of this realm, it's going to be a dangerous time for Donald Trump in the upcoming midterm elections that our international correspondent in Washington, D.C., Norman Floyd Barnes, he always picks out this issue, and it is something to look forward to understand the plight of those working in governmental jobs in America.
Sir, you have seen the Donald Trump 1.0. Now you are witnessing Donald 2.0 almost 10 months. Still he has around 40 months in power. Do you think world is going to face nightmare of Donald Trump because he is creating so much of chaos around the globe? He is creating so much of chaos inside America. He is disrespecting and undermining democracy. He is disrespecting the American people even.
How far or so? Well, it was the American people who elected him back into this presidential seat. One cannot disagree that he does have some kind of sway over the American people at large to some extent, given the last election results and for the swing states that elected him into power. But the Democrats are facing quite the stringent administration. Currently, some are being arrested, some are being discussed upon, some are shown to see that they weren't actually doing governmental jobs. So these are quite the important factors in American politics. It is always Republican versus Democrats. One time it might be the Democrats who are in power, and the next term maybe the Republicans. But what is something that is missing out here is that America has intense sway over geopolitics in as a whole. The market in America is quite lucrative for even countries like our own, Bangladesh. We have a huge RMG appeal in United States of America. And in my journey, when I was there, I could see that a Made in Bangladesh label was readily available in outlet stores like Macy's and Neiman Marcus. So to my understanding, US President Donald Trump, his actions will definitely set forth a different time in American history. And we know that this president is not like other presidents that has represented America on a global stage. But since now, beforehand, there was this narco-trafficking drug issue from the south of America. But right now, he had named the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America. That is the attitude, that is the way of thinking in that part of the world.
And he said Venezuela is a factory of drugs. Sir, you have been witnessed the outrage of New Yorkers this time, and you have seen the raising of Jahran Mamdani, a very young face, very talented face. He is welcoming everyone to come for debate, but Ndukomo is still not showing his interest to face Jahran Mamdani. On the other side, Jahran Mamdani already challenged, as you said, that he is ready to face Donald Trump. What is your prediction on this election?
Well, the Big Apple remains in New York. New Yorkers are not just people who are ethnically American or ethnically Hispanic. It is a community in the 5 boroughs that include nationalities even from South Asia as well. There's a huge Bangladeshi and Pakistani and Indian community there,
yes,
which is thriving, and those who are doing jobs are from these ethnic backgrounds. Of course, this detainment of street vendors who are largely immigrant population in New York, this sets a new tone for the New York City. And of course, I'm sure that it happened so early that actors such as Zohran Mamdani has still not made a comment on this matter. But it will be following through. I'm sure that we'll be able to pick it out on tomorrow's show.
Sir, there are few unifying figures in Democratic Party like Barack Obama, like Hillary Clinton, Bill Gates, and some other unifying top leaders in Democrat Party, but still it is not visible that these unifying political figures are endorsing Jahran Mamdani. What is the reason you find behind this, the delay of endorsement?
I want to compare, given that you've asked me about Zohran Mamdani and what their election mayoral in the first primary mayoral, what their promise was to what they're going to do if they were elected as the mayor of New York City. And almost all the candidates, including Eric Adams, they have said that they would go visit Israel and talk to its leader. Where Zohran Mamdani said that I will not do such international tour. I will focus on the 5 boroughs that surround Manhattan, including Manhattan itself. So that is someone who the immigrant population can look forward to. But given that situation, we are yet to see what kind of it's coming up. Actually, the mayoral final is coming up. Who is going to be elected for the next mayor in New York City is quite so important. But once again, this fight between Washington D.C. and Donald Trump and or person like Zohran Mamdani in New York, these are internal rifts between a country's political hemisphere, which others will not take so lightly.
Right, sir. Here is the breaking news. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy begins prison term in France. Former President Nicolas Sarkozy has arrived at a prison in Paris to begin serving a 5-year sentence for criminal conspiracy tied of his 2007 election campaign allegedly financed by Libyan President Muammar Gaddafi. Sir, what is the lesson we get from this? He himself gone to the prison gate and he said, I'm willing to start my prison term today. And what is the message for the rest of the world that as former very powerful president like Nicolas Sarkozy is facing this kind of prison life?
Well, of course, this comes in that he has reportedly maintained close ties with Emmanuel Macron, who's the leader of France, and despite ideological differences, often consulted on diplomatic and European issues. Well, if you are seen to be trying to help a dictator, that this, of course, the law will catch up to you in some case or some extent, but just comes to show how far France is a civilized nation. Even though there has been a situation in France as of recent which undermines its security aspect, but it also shows that the legal system in France, he is someone who is putting himself in front of his trial, and he's someone who is turning himself in to serve his 5-year term. It's just to show that France is a very civilized community. But there are instances in France in which it has made sure of international shock, if you would call it. Napoleon Bonaparte's cousin's precious jewels were stolen earlier this week from the Louvre Museum, considered to be one of the most secure places on earth. It of course holds a famous painting of the Mona Lisa, which this time around was safe. Unfortunately, it wasn't stolen. And yeah, that's about it regarding Nicolas Sarkozy. Of course, he is now going to be serving his 5-year jail term, and people are definitely going to try to see. And even so, very recently, the newest Prime Minister also had tendered his resignation, which was stopped by Emmanuel Macron. We need to understand the political pressures of France as it is continuing on.
All right, sir. Let us come back to South Asia. Recently, South Asia has got tensions in Afghanistan and Pakistan border, and 2 months back, South Asia has witnessed a 4-day war between India and Pakistan. There are something fishy in Cambodia and Thailand border. We will definitely discuss this, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for a short break, and after the break, we will discuss Thailand, Cambodia, recent tensions.
Welcome, Grand Palace Hotel, Dhaka. A majestic lobby blending timeless elegance with modern design. Experience 5-star comfort in suites and rooms. Sophisticated fine dining restaurant. Crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation. Modern gym and serene spa for well-being. Perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties. Seamless and secured. Elegant and eye-catching design. Indulge, relax, discover the first 5-star chain hotels in Bangladesh. Grand Palace Hotel Dhaka, 22 Kakrail, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Welcome to Grand Club at Mirpur 10 Dhaka.
Once a journalist asks to a city mayor, what is the main beauty of your city? He says, very organized traffic system. Again, the journalist asked that mayor, Rudy Giuliani, what is the main disorganized things you have in your city? He said, answer is traffic system. Due to traffic systems, we are very unlucky to have in late professor, my very favorite professor of political science, University of Dhaka, Dr. Rashid. Sir, we are very sorry for the traffic systems, but finally late is better than never. We have got you. Sir, my first question would be to you that should we give the highest priority of traffic system right this moment?
Of course, like the Dhaka city is like a epicenter of our growth, and everything is here. So at the moment, like the situation is very much going out of control. Like although we have some flyover and some good initiative taken, but I think the way the traffic management, like the not of hierarchy of signals like that using the electronic systems. Still we are operating through manual systems. So that's how like it carve your time and it cut your time. So that's how I think in the days of artificial intelligence and in the age of like so much of sophistication, I think this manual system is not working, and we should keep focus on like how we can improve this system. Although some innovation is taking place, but I think this should be the highest priority from the next government, particularly the mayors, the elected mayors. They should actually think about it and how to,
Right,
better
sir.
manage
I personally
these things,
believe that a traffic system should be very focused to resolve, sir. Before you come, our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho was asking me to discuss one thing with you, which is regarding the tribunal issue, and I think he has articulated one question for you. Please, let's do it, sir.
Well, of course, welcoming Dr. Rashid Alam back into our studio. I know that we're unfortunate to have you so late in the program. But one of the things that me across with all my entire reporting staff, we are picking out today is this tribunal issue in which the former, those who have been seen helping the former ousted regime are now being put up to the stand, and they will now, a verdict will now be given regarding what will be the punishment for their for these crimes. I just want your small comment on this matter.
Thank you. So you have been teaching on these issues like the independence of judiciary, and the judiciary should go on its own way rather than any intervention from any other executive or any other powerful forces. So that's the thing, like I think after the 5th of August, this is one of the huge achievement. Like nobody is, I mean, we should not discriminate anyone under the law. So everybody should be, if he is involved in some crime, if he's involved in something atrocious, I think it's the duty of the judiciary and High Court to brought him into the justice. So ITC, I think, doing the right thing, and it is one of the biggest achievement after this 5th of August. Like we want to see that the judiciary, we teach in our class like the three branches, executive, legislation, and judiciary, should have their own power and they should run with their own independence. And that's the important thing. Like whatever the criminal is too powerful, it doesn't matter in the eyes of law. That's the thing this ITC has came up with, and they bring up this. I know there is issues of like whether they should take it to the court or not, whether there should be a separate branches of court should be. But yeah, today we have seen that this is the law of the country, and if you are part of any criminal activities, nobody is spared by the eyes of law. So that is one of the biggest things. I think there should be fair trial given to these army officials, even if they found guilty on some cases. I think the duty of the ITC.
All right. Dear audience, I always appreciate Professor Rashid. He's very outspoken and a huge academician. Sir, you read politics, you write politics, you speak on politics, you teach politics. So I want to do a political question to you. Just before you come in the studio, we are discussing former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has gone to the prison gate, submitted a paper that yes, there is a verdict from the court that I have to spend 5 years in the jail. I am ready, I want to begin it today. And you know, the former National Security Advisor of United States and the FBI Director, they are all under questioning and scrutiny of judiciary for doing something wrong. So this proves that no one is under the law, no one is above the law. Do you think judiciary is Bangladesh has that level of guards to bring everyone, every individual in under the law?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I think, yeah, even though we are seeing this kind of development, like this kind of the highly influential cases in the ITC, but yeah, you know, we have seen there are some, particular evidence in the previous regimes, and since after independence in this country, we have seen there are certain times when the laws didn't go through according to the merit, and somebody is given more priorities and less priorities. So I think, yeah, you said like the powerful intellectual, powerful quarters, they have outside the, hidden influence into the system, and somehow the executive, like that's why these reforms things are coming up now today, like how the executive apparatus of the country should not intervene in the judicial discourses and judicial judicial proceedings. That's how the reform initiative that has taken place in the country last 1 year. So we want to see that the High Court branches and Supreme Court branches should operate without any political connections, without any intervention from the executive apparatuses. That's very important. And you know that the countries in the global north, they actually have bring this kind of a standard. That's why the corruption is less in those countries, because the high level of politician is very much aware of this kind of like what is the law and what punishment should I be. I mean, there is a social and other consequences as well. So that's why they avoid this kind of criminal activities or corruptions in their politics. So I think this is a start. I think this is, the Bangladesh Armed Forces is our pride. So we want to see armed forces also cooperate with these existing laws of the court and also international crime tribunal. So I think this is also a matter of the if any neglection throws to the national armed forces, it also hurt us. So that's why it is very important armed forces to cooperate as well, and they should also uphold the spirit of the laws. That's we want to see as an academic, as a general people of the country.
Before I meet you, I have gone through your many articles. I became a big fan of yours. I'm very lucky that I have got you in the studio, and you are awesome. Sir, I want to go to, there is a news that new tensions are rising in Thailand-Cambodia border.
Right.
I want to draw the attention of our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Panto, who doesn't leave any single event happening in the world. I'm sure he can open these new tensions and new frontier in Southeast Asia, sir.
Well, if you're looking at Cambodia and Thailand, they do have a border dispute regarding a religious site that is nearby the border. And well, that is what the reason for going into war was. And of course, they do have border trade. Or one of the things that took to the world media was one is imposing psychological warfare or psychological methods to scare one another. I will come to the story for our viewers. The Cambodian Human Rights Committee, CHRC, has formally accused Thailand of conducting psychological warfare-style broadcasts. Loud, ghost-like wailing sounds, aircraft engine noises at night directed into the Cambodian border villages, especially in the Prechan and Chok Che regions. So, this is a different kind of war front. We see a nation like Thailand is playing on loudspeakers the sounds of ghosts, the sounds of things that would incite fear amongst anyone those would be hearing them at night. This is a very new tactic, I would say, is a way of trying to create misdemeanor between the two sides, even though there is internationally backed ceasefire, especially by the Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim of Malaysia. This is a very new frontier for confrontation between the two, and why it matters is that it's a non-conventional form of border harassment and psychological warfare that one is imposing on the other. Of course, we have not seen any similar instances in various war fronts. This would be the first, which is why I feel that it was significant to bring it on today's program.
Yeah, it's very important. Sir, recently Geneva Center for Peace and Security published one article and survey that in 2024 and 2024, most of the conflicts took place due to the dispute in the borders.
Right.
Except the attack in Venezuela from United States, that is the reason of drugs. Why so much of border dispute is coming in front of us, and nations are started fighting for border dispute, because border dispute has been resolved most of the cases before 1973 in Geneva Peace Committee meeting.
Thank you. So I think international systems now in endangered situation at the moment, like, you know, the biggest countries who are supposed to establish peace, establish stability in the global order, they are still fighting among this. And that's have a micro ripple effect on the small countries like the eastern border. That's happening. So, and also the non-conventional crimes recently, like the cross-border trafficking, cross-border irregular migration, and other things are also very much in hike at the moment. So overall, since the decade of 1980s, where we have some global human rights upholding, those are the regime. I think the one of the, good regime. But since then, after the 2001, the 11th September events, now this kind of non-conventional crime, the cross-border issues, and also like the countries now no longer believe in international standard. They're trying to push us through the realist politics where benefit for me, but the zero sum. The zero sum. So it's zero for the neighbors, sum for me. So that's the attitude we are now seeing everywhere in the world. That's kind of insurgency among the nations, and luckily there are some good arbitrators like the Qatar is doing in some cases. So I think Malaysia also had a very positive roles in this regard, like when there's a huge amount of tension taken place in last few months ago between the two countries. So Malaysia have a good arbitrator role. So I think the countries should understand that like this is the age of humanity. We are not going back to the age of war. That's very important, and that's certainly, and it has a huge consequences for the socio-economic indices for the country's citizen. Like particularly after the Ukraine war, where everything prices is gone up. The inflation is a big issue at the moment for the citizen everywhere in the world. So this kind of new war, and there is another conflict areas is now emerging in Caribbean. So US is like recently I have heard that recently US also stationed a large number of their troops in the Caribbean areas. So there are some insurgency might be taking place in the Latin American and American zone as well. So this is overall that the scenario Eastern Europe, and then the East Asian border, and also the Latin American border. So we have seen conflict in everywhere, and that ultimately actually harmful for the citizens. Like we have to buy the things in higher prices because everything has an effect, and everything.
Professor Rashid, recently I was watching one of your interview with one Western media where you are telling that world is going to face new geopolitical reshaping and influence of money, influence of power of money. I just want to add one more question with this same question for you. And what is the difference you find before 9/11 and after 9/11, the global politics?
Yeah, when the Berlin Wall fall in 1980s, everyone thought about like we have every country will be in democracy. There will be no conflict within the democracy. There will be no conflict within the white races, like the white supremacists will be there. Democracy, capitalism would be everywhere. But what we see, like the new kind of threats taken place by the Samuel P. Huntington. So that is like the clashes between the civilization, clashes among the civilization. That is very much the thesis of these ages at the moment. So divide and rule, dividation among the nations, and also like the huge amount of tension, like of terrorism, and also the threat of counter, like the trafficking and non-conventional warfare, like mercenaries. These are the huge amount of increases we have seen in the last 20 years or so. So I like this is the Samuel P. Huntington thesis, like the clashes among the civilization, clashes, and also there should be some polarization as well. We have seen that we can see that there is apart from the unilateral world, we are seeing that the multipolarity is another biggest thing that we are seeing at the moment, like China, the emerge of China, and also Russia under the Putin. So these are the multipolarity that we are seeing at the moment, which is actually USA is immense pressure. Whatever Trump is doing at this moment, USA have immense pressure of debt, and also the economic collapse within the country. There is a bank collapses. We have heard the international media that there is a USA is like the global recession is coming very soon. So that's why the gold prices also immensely increasing last few months. So so there's a huge threat at the moment. Like I don't know whether it give us a signal of biggest World War III or not. Like the way the West and also Western Europe is targeting Russia at the moment, Russia's options becoming very limited at the moment. Although they're trying to their energy policies toward looking east policy, but recently the US sanction on the Indian policy, that also limiting Russian option at the moment.
Sir, I'm coming back to you. I need to get one update from our international affairs commentator regarding the rare earth issue. It is still trending in the number 1, 2, 3 news in the Western medias, even in the Chinese medias.
Well, where to find that rare earths is because it is in demand. As I was telling even yesterday, that whatever it is in demand will definitely go up in price. These are economic terms that I'm using in order to explain to my viewers what rare earths are. These are minerals from the elements table which are important in manufacturing goods for technological development like supercomputers and those who are working behind the scenes behind the artificial intelligence.
All right, sir. We are running really out of time, but one more question. As you heard that the meeting between Putin and Donald Trump has postponed and US shows no interest. Would you mind to conclude your speech in 1 minute regarding this, your impression?
Right. So the Budapest meeting is cancelled, as we know. So I think here USA has interest, like if Russia's well not exported to the Europe, so that's actually benefiting US. So US is supplying most of the gases at the moment, European market. So Europe has a objection to this kind of summit because the Europe said without the presence of Zelensky, this kind of summit is not working. So that's why from the and since Donald Trump also have to appease their European partners, so that's why he has taken this into consideration, and US is trying to maximize their pressure because Russia is in little bit of back foot at the moment until any massive radical changes coming up.
I really appreciate you, sir. I really appreciate our international affairs commentator also. Without your presence, we have continued the show, and he has given a huge effort on that. Without his effort and sincere cooperation, it would be very tough to run this show today. I appreciate both of them. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you tomorrow with new guests, new topics and new updates.
Glory